Have you ever pulled up a mix after you did mix prep, started to EQ, and then didn't know which compressor to reach for? Let's be honest, there are tons of audio tools out there, but any engineer that's worth their salt has to know the two basics, EQ and compression. With so many options out there today, it's really difficult sometimes to know where to start. But there is one thing I want you to understand. There is no magical compressor, hardware, or plugin. They all have different flavors, but that's because there's 4 different types of compressors, and there's different ones that you're gonna wanna reach for depending on the situation. Obviously, there's no hard set of rules, but by the end of this video, you'll understand the different types of compressors and the best applications for them. So what's happening, fam? Miami here with JST, and I've been guilty of reaching for compressors in the past without actually knowing what's going on under the hood. If it sounds good, then it sounds good, right? But just because something sounds good doesn't mean it's what's necessary to stand out in the mix. Once you know the different kinds of compression, you'll understand the way that they affect your audio sources, and you might actually be able to pick out what's happening under the hood of some of your favorite plugins. I'm giving you the sauce right now, but let's hop into this because once we're done, you'll know exactly when you should be smashing those compressors. But on that subject, there's one more thing I need you to smash. Subscribe and make sure you hit that notification bell to be notified when we upload new content. Transition game is still crazy. All right, type 1. I'm gonna start this off with my favorite type of compression. Optical compression. Transition game just leveling up. Optical compression is the smoothest of the audio compressor bunch. It's properly named since it depends on an actual light source and detector to determine the amount of gain reduction being applied to the signal. Every opto will sound different depending on the resistors and light source. The harder a signal is pushed, the brighter the light becomes, and the more gain reduction will occur. The less a signal is pushed, well, obviously it's gonna have the opposite effect. You know what I always thought was weird? Optical compressors are the slowest type of compression, but are literally based on the speed of light, or like the speed of a light. Like what? Well, to be technical, electricity is about 1/100th the speed of light, so we'll give it a pass. The most famous hardware versions of these are of course the LA2A and more recently the CL1B. The JST bus glue vocals transparent and bouncy modes are some in-the-box optical compressors with unique designs, and tame mode on the JST BG guitars. Yeah, that's what's going on under the hood. I told you I was gonna give you guys the sauce. The opto compressor is best used for vocals, bass, and guitars in music other than heavy metal. You wouldn't want to use it on material you're relying on initial transient response unless it was on a bus or something. Type 2, tube compression. Type 1, type 2. It sounds like I'm listing off a bunch of diseases, and it would be sick if you hit that subscribe. I'm kidding. You guys said I was slowing up on the transition, so I'm just having a little fun with it this episode. Tube compression or variable mute compression is where things start to get tricky because don't the optical compressors I named earlier have tubes in them? Here's the rundown. Those optical compressors are using tubes for color, while tube compressors are using tubes for gain reduction. True tube compressors were actually the first audio compressor design. As the signal going into the compressor increases, the current sent to the tube decreases, resulting in gain reduction. The transformers in these paired with the tubes make the most colorful of the compressor types. These are usually best on the same kind of sources that optical compressors are used on, but are more known to be thrown on a bus, especially a mastering bus, because of the way that they glue audio. And the main reason you'd want to grab one of these for a bus versus an opto comp is because it gives us attack and release, as well as the option to drive the input gain. The most famous version of these in hardware, probably the Fairchild or the Manley Vari-U. Type 3. The VCA compressor. Now we're getting to the stuff that deals with important transient information. Voltage controlled amplifiers are where we introduce threshold, attack, release, ratio, and on occasion, knee. VCA compressors actually give you the most gain reduction of any compressor. It's basically an attenuator. It brings the volume down depending on how much voltage it's receiving. Now here's where VCA compressors are confusing but also unique. If you think about it, most compressor types have voltage controlled amplifiers. So what makes the VCA compressor so special? It's because the amplifiers in a VCA are housed in an IC or integrated circuit. This makes it extremely transparent and has less distortion. If you can only get one type of compressor, I would really recommend a VCA because with its variable controls and low noise, it can work on any source. Some hardware examples of these are the SSL channel comp, SSL bus comp, the DBX 160, API 2500, you know, all that stuff. And all of the modes in the JST and Joel Wanasek bus glue are VCA based. Another little Easter egg for you guys. Specifically amazing on drums because you can set the attack and release to make it really snappy, and amazing on the mix bus because of the amount of control, but none of the distortion that you would get from our final type of compressor. Type 4. If If you were going to type 4 words in the comments, what would they be and why would it be I love you Miami? Obviously because I'm about to teach you about FET compressors. A FET compressor depends on using transistors to achieve gain reduction. Transistor game, still crazy. Transistors started being used to replace tubes simply because they were cheaper. The most popular of these is obviously the 1176, and FET compressors are typically great on the same sources as a VCA. But the reason you wouldn't use a FET compressor on a mix bus is because of the aggressive amount of harmonic distortion. Imagine how that would sound on your mix bus. Not great, my friend, not great. But it's a go-to because of the punch it gives paired with how quickly it reacts, bringing life to transient rich sources. Even at its slowest attack, it is wildly faster than an opto or tube compressor. Remember how earlier I said that VCA doesn't give you much distortion because of the IC chip? Well, a FET and VCA are really similar besides this one change. One could argue that they're part of the same family. The best place to use a FET compressor is on vocals, bass, and especially drums. Pairing a FET with an optical compressor is popular because the FET brings the aggressiveness to the source while the optical compressor just smooths it out. Some cool options for FET-styled compression in the box is JST Bus Glue Bold Mode, Billy Decker Bus Glue Guitars Clamp, and Billy Decker Bus Glue Vocals Push. I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown of the different types of compression, the best places to use them, and hopefully you have a bit more of an idea what to reach for when you open your next mix. The sky's the limit, but remember that at the end of the day, if you don't understand compression and EQ, it's going to be really hard for you to level up in the audio game. You now have the info, so I leave it in your gracious hands. If you're an engineer on the come up, give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, you only have to do it one time. And tap that bell for notifications so when a video drops, you know the location. Until next time, I'm out of here. Mic drop. Except, you know, I would never really drop this thing because it'd get really expensive, even if it is a piece of shirt. Later.